Well, boys, looks like you started the fun without me.
You're all sick. Every last one of you.
We're going to need a bigger gun.
What's the matter? You scared of things that go boom, boom, boom?
Give me one goddamn reason why I shouldn't blow your goddamn brains all over that goddamn wall.
My name is Eric, and I'm here today with medical professional mental doctor Michael Kester.
Wow, that's...
who will be talking to me about two movies.
Two movies, yeah. We're going to do two films today about medical professional mental doctor is... Okay, fuck that. We're doing Dementia 13.
Thank you, good.
And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, great. Crazy people. You know my favorite thing in the world.
Two great films that go great together.
Great fucking crazy people. We're going to spoil these movies. I think we're also going to spoil Psycho.
Okay.
So, well, here's my rationale on that, right? I don't actually want to spoil the movies that we're not talking about because I want to give people a fair chance to see. Yeah, if you haven't fucking seen Psycho, I mean, there's a statute of limitations on
I don't know. I always get pissed off when people go, well, if you haven't seen it by now.
Okay,
like,
but that's only half the argument, right? I understand that, and I agree with you. Okay. If someone just came on our show today and spoiled Citizen Kane, I'd be mad. But if you've seen Dementia 13 and you haven't seen Psycho, you clearly, I mean, you've shown your priorities here.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, it's our fucking show. I want to talk about Psycho.
The thing about Psycho is that's one of those movies that's been, I mean, it's been spoiled. The spoiler has been dead the whole time.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't spoil Psycho just to ruin somebody's good time. I just mean... There's a cool thing that happens in Psycho that, by the way, I did not know about when I saw it for the first fucking time, and I'm going to ruin it on today's show.
Well, and after this long diatribe about the spoilers in Psycho, if you wanted to chapter over that conversation just had, you could have done that by using your chapters menu to go straight to Dementia 13 or right over that to Cuckoo's Nest or even all the way to the end of the show where we discuss who's fucking who next week.
Yeah, that's definitely happening. The intro of our show is pretty much just to get order in line because we never understand order of the movies, order of the spoilers.
Order of the pizza.
We're definitely not going to spoil Sucker Punch today, which is a movie that even if I urged people to go see first, no one would see it. Go see that. You should actually see Sucker Punch. We did a show on it. Today's show is on Dementia 13, and another flick we'll talk about later.
So Dementia 13 is from way back when in the beginnings of New World Pictures.
Yeah.
Where a bunch of young filmmakers were just getting their start out in the real world. Roger Corman, who we've discussed ad nauseum for no reason. Roger Corman is one of the most unnecessary people to discuss if you've discussed him more than once.
Sure.
Because he's a one-trick pony. It's just a fabulous trick.
Well said. This movie does not waste any fucking time, though. It is exploitation from the first goddamn frame. That is your trick, right? It's, what does he say in the boat? He says something like, if I die, you get nothing. And then he falls over and dies.
Oh my god, a heart attack. Not now. Not me.
Yeah, right.
So, it's interesting that you bring up Psycho.
Yeah.
Because Corman commissioned Francis Coppola to do one of those Psycho movies, but I want more blood and more killing.
Is that the case?
Yes, Psycho came out and Corman absolutely just said, rip off Psycho with more blood and more killing.
Well, success.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of know that by looking at it, right? It's not really a secret.
Right.
It's clearly, I mean, even in the surprises it has in the mid, first act, or I guess middle of the movie kind of thing, it pulls.
So that's where little Francis Coppola got his start directing. He'd been doing editing for New World for a while.
Yeah.
And then apparently his edit of this film was not good enough because Corman then basically looked at it and said, what is this, art? Let's get that Jack Hill character in here.
Oh, sure, yeah, this is the thing that has the Jack Hill parts.
Yeah.
I forget that Jack Hill is involved, but I always remember the scenes he did because they're the ones with Simon, the lovable Irish poacher character, who just shows up for no fucking reason. And it's just totally different than the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
It's another one of the things like the Psycho ripoff element where you just watch it and point to it and go, I see what's happening here.
Every time with a Corman film, especially the early black and white ones, when you see something like The Lovable Irish Poacher, you look at it and instead of seeing, this is an aspect of the film I like, you see it and you see like a few more dollar signs appear next to the name of the film.
Sure.
And that, I mean, that's the goal.
We need to do some kind of feature where we figure out how much money was made in a film, and then we estimate in real time.
Video style.
Yeah, we could do a commentary / infographic.
That sounds like
that shows up on the screen and
idea.
Just add up the money as it's. Maybe we can double feature it with the Tyler Perry film. I love Dementia 13 for being Coppola's White Cat movie. This is the movie that just white cats him as a, that Pet the White Cat idea from what movie is that from? We always reference
Enter the Dragon.
Sure.
Way back when we did Enter the Dragon.
You think Enter the Dragon's scary, there's a villain in it, he pets a white cat.
Yeah.
It's not that bad.
No.
It's really not that hard. Francis Ford Coppola, I mean, we should talk about who he is today.
Oh, yeah.
Because I feel like he's one of those, he's a double feature director we should love, but he doesn't look like that because he's put on a disguise. And so people don't know. I mean, he's the guy who made Godfather.
He made The Godfather. He did Apocalypse
Now, yeah.
I mean, this is...
What else do you need to say? Godfather and Apocalypse Now. That does not sound like a double feature director.
Well, it's partially because both of those films exceed 3 hours.
Sure.
Which we don't even go near. But also, they exceed 3 hours, and by the end, you actually might not understand what happened.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, too.
Basically, they're films that require more than a 25-minute conversation.
Sure.
Not to say that we exclusively do films that can be accurately discussed in 25 minutes, because one, we are incapable of accurately discussing anything in 25 minutes.
In any amount of time, really.
Right. and B, a lot of the films we cover are really, really difficult for even us to get all the information and all the things we want to say out.
Sure.
And Dementia 13, it's weird because Dementia 13, I feel like, is just as notable as a Coppola film as Apocalypse Now and the Godfather films, which I still haven't seen.
Good. Well, you're right about them.
Yeah, and I feel like Dementia 13 is one of those things that needs to go right up on the wall of, if you're a Coppola fan, you need to examine and kind of watch Dementia 13 from a Coppola film, an auteurist perspective.
Yeah. Well, you don't think guy who made the Godfather films makes a Roger Corman black and white, horror movie. I mean, he also did The Conversation. Remember we saw The Conversation?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I mean, Francis Ford Coppola is really fucking good, But you don't think he made Apocalypse Now. I don't know. It's weird. It's fucking weird. It's one of these things. I mean, we've talked about how exploitation can be a black mark for people in their permanent film record.
Sure.
As an embarrassing thing they did that they can never get. Think about Jack Hill. I mean, he was always exploitation.
Oh, yeah.
You think
start and
Jack
finish.
Hill, you think exploitation. Yeah. Roger Corman, I mean, the same way.
Roger Corman is an interesting type of exploitation, because his exploitation started residing in the films he made and began residing in the production. Like he exploited production.
His life. Sure.
Yeah.
But somebody like Coppola actually got away from the exploitation stuff. He's no longer Russ Meyer.
Right.
He's doing these Nudie Cutie movies with Corman.
Right.
Back when he was part of that crew of a bunch of people Corman kept around that did weird things on movies.
Yeah.
It was just a collection, like a janitorial staff.
Yeah. That's how
you guys get together, make me a movie.
Sure. Who's going to act? Who's going to direct?
Sure.
There's the same 6 people. Which one of you is directing? Which one of you is acting?
And Coppola is amazing in that he he does The Godfather and so forth, and he gets so far away from the Corman stuff that people don't even realize he was doing New World movies. That's where that's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. So I want to talk about those exploitative elements of the movie, because I love that it's Coppola and that this is where he came from and that he's secretly one of those directors I'm in love with, but everyone knows him as the other guy. But the movie itself, I mean, from the opening credits, you have probably my favorite element of it, which is the music.
Yeah.
It's kind of that cartoon type of spooky.
Well, it's like a post-silent film score.
Yeah.
It's a silent film score over a talkie.
Sure. Yeah, right. It's kind of that Twilight Zone theme almost. Yeah. I mean, today it looks like he did this movie as a self-aware joke.
Yeah.
That's the type of movie. But this really was. It's as if it's a perfect throwback film that, Archie Coppola directed that. But no, it's really one of those movies.
If somebody were to present Dementia 13 to somebody and say, this is Coppola's film, it came out last year.
Sure.
It would be this.
First of all, you wouldn't question that at all. And secondly, you'd go, I see this artistic thing he's doing. Yeah, right. You would make those sounds.
Sure.
That's also the difference in type of movies double feature can do.
Yeah.
Is the movies that have those sounds take longer. But the fucking music really is my favorite thing. It's that kind of toy piano is it a toy piano? I don't know what the hell the instrument is.
I think it's a normal piano from the 60s.
Is that what it is? I mean, you use this music to make fun of, the type of movies from this era. But it's not necessarily actually this music that shows up in these movies. Oh, but it is in Dementia 13. So the lead dying first, that's the thing that makes me think about Psycho.
I love that.
It's we didn't have to spoil Psycho, but I just wanted to. That's all I really had to say, right? I mean, that was the only thing, is just to go, the lead dies. Yeah. There, I ruined Psycho. Well, that happens in both.
And that's a staple of ripping off Psycho. It's two things. There's two things that Dementia 13, there maybe three.
Okay.
That Dementia 13 really rips hardcore off Psycho.
Is one of them a buffer?
Okay, 4.
Sure, okay.
There's 4
now
things.
You're covered.
The first thing is that the lead dies, and you think you're going to be following this woman, and she ends up getting killed. The second is its elements of film noir, right?
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
just making sure.
Well, those have to be in there because it's in the 60s and it's black and white.
Right,
so,
yeah. And there's a woman in it.
If you think about,
right?
that happens
and
too.
And a sleuthy doctor. The same sleuthy doctor who we saw back in Clockwork Orange.
Look at you.
And then...
and also the type of psychobabble. And that happens in Cuckoo's Nest too, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But there was a period where, the climax of this film is sitting in a bar talking about psychology. That's a thing you could do in the 60s.
Uh-huh.
People were so fucking infatuated. In noir, too, it's a big staple in noir. We don't hit those movies a lot because they're stupid, but it's a staple in noir that you just, psychology, ooh.
Yeah.
It was...
The human mind and its cavernous depth.
Right. That could literally be, it's just two people in a bar talking psychology.
Right.
That's the exciting moment you'll never forget.
All you do is you take the Star Trek captain's intro and replace the word space with the human mind whole way through.
Yeah, that's absolutely it.
And
later they realize that the scares are where it's at.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to say is that
the
third thing that it's like Psycho because it's a fucking, arguably a slasher film. And I say arguably because we don't consider Psycho a slasher film.
Sure.
But it's violent as fuck.
Yeah.
Especially for the era. It is violent as hell. There's decapitations and all sorts of dragging a dead body a la the intro to The Devil's Rejects.
Yeah,
you know, it's all sorts of dark and fucked up. And that's how you get the Corman fannies in the seats.
Sure. Well, let's talk about that Psycho thing, that slasher thing for a moment. Because I feel it's a little too much, the Vincent Price House on Haunted Hill to be a slasher film.
It's a Corman Castle film.
But it is a lot closer to a slasher film than Psycho.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked on that show about the debatable origins of it or whatever. But this, Sam Loomis is in this fucking movie. You know what I mean?
Yep.
The fucking trench coat and everything, as the psychobabble and saving the day kind of. And he does resemble Loomis, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Is that
absolutely.
Do you think there was kind of an intentional thing there?
I can't tell who's ripping off
Speculate
who.
Needlessly on a director's intention for me.
I don't know, especially when we went back when we did Dark Star and we discovered who actually ripped off who with Dark Star.
Sure.
I don't actually know the origins of anything John Carpenter has done.
Carpenter's still sending us hate mail about that episode.
Who knows what the hell is going on with that?
But especially that ending where he's running to save the day in a light trench coat.
Sure.
It's pretty hard to deny. There's at least similarities, if not intentional.
Right. Well, and the whole thing about a slasher film that we've covered over and over again is that there's a heavy exploitation element. So if you take a film that's questionably a slasher and say exploit that, you're bound to create something far closer to our favorite 80s films.
I think if there was if you modernized it, that's really one of the only things that... If you replace the spooky haunted house of the 60s with a summer camp, you're done.
Yeah.
You're fucking done.
Absolutely
That's the whole, you know what I mean? You have the 60s element, the type of Psycho element of get away with the money, or, it's more the noir,
The rationale. I believe they call that rationale.
Take the husband's inheritance kind of thing.
It's where you give a reason for the killing. In the 80s, they realized the reason is people want to see it.
You're at camp.
Yeah.
That was the... well, and that was the great thing about, not to get too far into slasher territory, but the Friday the 13th series became about Jason's mom and all that stuff. Yeah. And that was never really... The series doesn't go out and say he's killing because of sex. They realize that, the audience will just make up that connection, and then we don't have to do it.
Fucking who cares?
Yeah, right.
So this is way back, 20 years before that, where the filmmakers, even Roger Corman's filmmakers, give the audience some credit.
Sure. Well, maybe not too much credit. They still have to have voiceover narration that explains why the things in the film are.
Very true.
Well, that's how you get into the psychology, Michael.
Oh, the psychology.
That was the big... I don't know if we've talked about that in Noir before, but I think that's where a lot of the VO comes from, is, it helps us get into the characters' mind. I mean, it's really there we can just explain the plot.
So that they don't have to walk around and speak out loud.
It's fucking lazy. But let's pretend the artistic reason is so you can get into characters' minds.
Yeah.
But we have, and I think this might be kind of a first, we have this sort of inner monologue, first-person narration from a woman. That happens in the beginning. It only happens the once because she fucking dies. But then Lady Halloran gives one too later on in the movie. But I mean, I can't think of a film before this one. And the amount of films I've seen compared to the amount of films that exist is relatively small. So it's, I'm sure there's other movies that do it, but I can't think of any other movies that are both before the 60s and have that type of voiceover narration from a woman's perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of crazy, isn't it?
It's definitely not common.
Even when you think about Psycho, that was just more sort of memory. She's in the car driving and there are, see, this is an excuse of Psycho spoilers. I'm now talking about more important. I'm not just spoiling the things. I'm talking about the content of Psycho. She's in the car driving and she has the memories, the flashbacks of what people were saying.
Yeah.
But it's not her... really, maybe there is voiceover. I don't remember. In Psycho, I don't remember if there's female narrative voiceover. Doublefeatureshow@gmail.com.
Yeah, that, or you could just go to YouTube.
Yeah, well, that's possible. Type in female voiceover and just see what the oldest thing that come up is.
No, it's best to keep the audience awake. Podmanity tends to fall asleep when we watch movies that are black and white or have words at the bottom. Bring on the hate mail.
Well, so let's talk about her plan. So she's gonna manipulate her way into the will, essentially.
That's a twisted thing to do, too.
It is a twisted thing.
But
it's fun in a movie. It's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, no, it's fun in a movie, but can you imagine how, especially because they don't even know her, she gives herself a lot of credit to say, I'm going to take this weekend, and this weekend I'm going to become an integral part of my late husband's family.
Well, and you and I try and operate our lives as moral, ethical human beings. I wanted to play this sort of pull of the weasel. I want to play this game here where let's delve into this world of fantasy for a moment and pretend we were trying to make our way into a will. Is that a thing you can fucking do in a weekend?
I don't think so.
Is that possible?
I don't even know if I'm in my parents' will.
Good job. Good fucking job. Well, in her plan and the way she does this, she goes in and she tries to drive a wedge between, John and the family. She tries to go in there and say, John can't be here. What a dick. But I'm so happy that I can. Is that going to fucking work? Is there a better plan? What else do you...
that's it.
If you're going to do it in a weekend, you just go butter them up, I guess.
I guess so.
It seems like a terrible plan. I feel like if you're going to try and get in someone's will, you pick an old person that needs a lot of help.
Yeah.
And you go clean their house every day after school. Yeah. Days even. It could take several days to earn an entire inheritance. You might not be able to get it done in the weekend. So we can't be done with Dementia 13 before we talk about the William Castle elements of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
So aside from the exploitative elements of the horror stuff, and we should say, the original elements too, the kind of... I'm making jokes about Coppola all the time, but I think he's doing an awesome job in this. It's legitimately scary. It has these moments that anytime they're lighting the dolls from under, it's fucking scary.
It's definitely one of the best put together exploitative horror films you can see.
The little scary doll thing starts crawling towards you, or they have the dramatic monkey toy. It's a fucking monkey toy. It should not be scary at all.
Well, and the thing you have to keep in mind is that's a lot of why Corman brought in the other people to work on it.
Yeah.
Because you have Roger Corman, whose sole purpose is to get as many people to go see a film, and you and I know this because we're horror movie guys. What is the hardest thing to do when you want to go see a horror movie in the theater?
Sure.
Find anybody interested in going, because either they think it's stupid or they think it's too scary.
It's either too scary or stupid. It's one end of the
or they don't
spectrum.
like body horror or some shit.
Sure.
And the thing is Corman is all geared towards, well, but if it's funny, if we can say it's a comedy, that's the thing that'll hook anybody, because everybody loves to laugh. So throw in a poacher.
Sure.
And so we have Coppola making a film that is so effectively scary and artistic that it makes Corman remake the movie.
Yeah.
That's a serious achievement. I mean, that's how you know that you've put together something that's an effective horror film.
Sure. I think Coppola has those moments too, though. His scares are kind of funny.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying and funny in the way, you know, when someone's pulling a fingernail off and everyone cringes and giggles, but they don't like it. It's a dramatically lit monkey toy. It's really funny, but also for a stupid reason. That's the thing.
Sure.
It's when you see a big bug in a movie, you know? It's not really scary, but you're afraid of it.
Every
and
Dario
you think that's
Argento
funny.
film.
Yes. There you have it. All right, but I didn't want to talk about Argento. I want to talk about William Castle, and then I got excited and didn't. There was a psychological test that was administered to the So this is great. So there was a William Castle fucking gimmick to this movie.
Okay.
I mentioned House on Haunted Hill earlier, but there are these William Castle movies, and they have gimmicks when they're sent to theaters. Last one we did was The Tingler. There were vibrators, World War II style, not David Cronenberg's Crash style. Vibrators put in bucket seats in the theaters, so you know people would get shocked during the movie or whatever. And so they had this psychological test in the theater that they made the audience take to make sure they weren't too crazy, that the movie would have this kind of reaction to make them flip out and kill everybody. And this makes it even fucking better if we can just wedge one more name in here. The psychological test scene that they set up was directed by Monty Hellman, who did Two Lane Blacktop. Yeah, fucking great. Two Lane Blacktop director. Let's talk about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I think is one of those Godfather type movies that takes more than 20 minutes. It's Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. Well, so
it's like when we did The Shining.
It's true.
And we somehow have to fit it in under 20 minutes and say things that everyone and their mother hasn't already said about The Shining. So do that.
Okay, well, one thing that I can say that definitely gives me a unique perspective on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is that it is the first film I ever bought. Ever in my life. First movie I ever bought. I've been watching this film since I was probably 8 or 9.
That's amazing. I'm so into that.
So I've seen this film. I have so much that I love about it. And I feel like
great, man.
It's really one of these films that, I mean...
Man, I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
Well, so can I ask you something about this then? So did you know about... You're watching this movie. You're 8. Did you know who all the people in the movie were?
You mean the actors?
Well, because, you have like 10 fucking mammoth actors from movies that I know. Okay, so Brad Dourif from Child's Play.
This is his first film.
Okay, that's awesome. He's tiny in this movie. I know you love Child's Play for a long time. That was one of your first slasher movies, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was my first. And I hadn't seen Child's Play.
Great.
I hadn't seen...
Doc Brown is in this movie. That had to be another childhood.
I knew that.
Cool.
Because Back to the Future was real early on for me. I think I taped it off TV kind of thing.
Yeah. Vincent Schiavelli, I think, was your babysitter at the time, right?
Yeah, definitely. He was my babysitter. I think somewhere in amidst watching it, I finally recognized Danny DeVito.
Oh, yeah.
As Tiny Little Martini.
It's only because he's not wearing pants.
Right.
That's the only reason I know who Danny... He has a lot of hair in this movie.
Yeah.
And he's kind of thin.
Yeah.
And I think 2 years after, he lost all his hair.
Sure.
And then just became the Danny DeVito that does not age. Sorry, but go on.
This last time through was the first time I ever noticed Scatman Crothers.
Yeah,
was in the film.
Sure, you want to talk about The Shining?
Yeah, that's
having that
was
role
really
in The Shining,
shocking
too.
to me to see that he's in the other old famous Jack Nicholson film.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Man, Jack Nicholson is one of those people today because he still works and he's old. That I dismiss, and I really should.
Me too.
I really shouldn't.
I really haven't seen anything that he's done since he's been old.
Oh, sure. I haven't seen a lot of those movies either, but I kind of go, "Oh, Jack Nicholson, what a joke." But man, you think about his early stuff.
Sure, you think about
any of his stuff, really.
I mean, you go all the way back to Easy Rider, and he's always delivered.
Sure.
He's delivered consistently through his entire career, I'd imagine.
Well, yeah, he's one of those guys. When you look at the movies we've done with him, I mean, you can see that stupid bias I have.
Yeah.
It's what Jack Nicholson movies have we done? The ones that we would have done whether he was in them or not.
Sure.
You know, those kind of movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Easy Rider, the one with the fucking feed me talking plant. What's the name of that movie?
The
Little Shop of Horrors. I didn't want to screw it up with the article at the beginning. The Little Shop of Horrors. This movie, The Shining. I mean, these are movies, especially this one in The Shining, that are ode to Jack Nicholson. But I don't go, man, that Jack Nicholson, he was pretty fucking great. Sure. We should put him in this.
Sure.
Or on the show, rather.
Yeah.
Michael Berryman was the only other one I can think of off the top of my head who was in, he was in The Devil's Rejects, the original Hills Have Eyes.
He's got a very tiny role.
Sure, yeah.
He gets dismissed as someone who won't raise his hand.
Yeah, sure.
That's his role.
I mean,
you know,
what are you going to do?
And so there's somebody else in this film, a character that I think if I had to make a list, and I've thought this for pretty much my whole life.
Sure.
If I had to make a list of most evil human beings in any movie ever, Nurse Ratched would be number one. The most evil, conniving, malicious, manipulative human being to ever be in a film.
Yeah, her role and the chemistry. Chemistry is a weird word to use, but yeah, chemistry between her and McMurphy is, you know, he brags about the ability to get under her skin. Sure. That's kind of how their relationship starts.
Put a bug up her ass, I believe.
That's it. Yeah, that's
so far up her ass, she won't know whether to shit or wind her wristwatch.
Well, because you know immediately, if we're going to think about this in that women imprisoned kind of sense. Sure. I mean, this is a lot of that archetype. This is a lot of you think about iconic women in prison warden, figure. I mean, this is the one.
Oh yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
He talks about identifying her early on. He just talks about her as she's the lead, she's the person there. Sure. She's the villain.
She's the face of the establishment that he's basically trying to fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, the entire film is kind of this give and take of establishment and establishing your own establishment inside to kind of subvert an entire grander establishment.
Yeah.
And she is the poster child for everything McMurphy is trying to defeat.
Yeah.
And he's come in and he's trying to get this army of crazy people to rise up just against her. And he feels like if he can beat her, he can beat the system.
You know what's great, though, is he fails so miserably.
Well, the thing is he never realizes what's at stake.
Yeah, sure.
That's the beauty of it, is he comes in dick swinging, ready, to kick some serious ass, not knowing how much he has to lose.
Yeah. Well, not knowing what he has to lose, but also not knowing the immense amount of power.
Sure.
I guess that's closely related to that she carries. I mean, he starts out and he's playing a game. I mean, these are the stakes, right?
Yeah.
He's playing a game where he wants to get them to watch the World Series, and he's antagonizing her, and then he needs to watch the World Series, and he goes, man, I didn't know the stakes were this high.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, he has a fucking lobotomy.
Right.
He's poking her in the side, and she fucking stabs him with a machete.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what happens.
Well, it's this thing that kind of points out this really interesting depth to the McMurphy character, where he is so sure that he can outsmart her, and he probably can. He is a smart guy.
Sure.
He's aware of a lot of this. He's definitely, more in control of his faculties than a lot of the people. Crazier or not crazier, that's, I think, left open-ended.
Yeah.
You're supposed to think that maybe he is just as nuts, if not crazier.
Sure. That's a big question that I kind of want to sweep under the rug, but one that we should mention is it's a big talking point of the movie. Is
but it's
he
an obvious
actually
one.
Crazy?
Yeah, and I don't think that that's as big of a point as looking at his character as somebody who is so ready to take on this fucking demon. She has horns.
Yeah,
she's a fucking demon.
Although I'd argue with you, man. I think she outsmarts him at
here's the
every
thing,
turn.
Is I think he is just as smart as she is, but he is so much more of a human being.
Okay.
He's pulling this entire team behind him.
Right.
He could have escaped how many times?
That's true. That's true.
He
could have won. Yeah.
Yeah, he could have been gone. He could have gotten out. He could have done all this stuff. But at the last minute, he's always, you know what? Instead of escaping, let's go on a big fucking fishing trip.
Yeah.
Or instead of escaping, Billy needs to get laid.
I mean, I just think about, how bad he loses. I guess that's when I think about the World Series thing, right? She not only beats him, but he can't even get to watch the World Series when he has a fair vote.
Yeah.
She goes to him, and by all rights, she could do the thing that the kind of Warden caricatures of her, following this movie would do, where they just rule with an iron fist and they say no, and they're, man, aren't they evil?
Right.
But she goes, oh, we'll give it a fair vote.
Sure.
And he just fucking loses the vote. And then, man, it's even worse. He gets the chief to vote. And the reason he loses is because it's too fair.
It's too fair.
She says to him, I mean, the meeting was adjourned. She's being very official, very proud. The vote was closed. It's all very official. And she ends up doing a way better job of getting under his skin where he wasn't even prepared for that, that to happen. So, I mean, what do you think her motivation is then? Is she just a dickish human being?
I think that a lot of it is, if you look at it, the film came out in the 70s. Women were still, trying to find their foothold, especially in a professional environment like this. She's, for all intents and purposes, she's the boss. I mean, she has the higher ups, the actual doctor and what have you, but she calls the shots on this ward.
Sure.
And I think that you get somebody like McMurphy who comes in, he's totally misogynistic. All his women friends are sluts.
Right.
He's just, women to him, they are not a massively respectable human.
Sure.
And I think she sees that in him, and she is fighting that in him the same way he's fighting her as the establishment.
Yeah.
And she takes it personally, and she wants him to know that she's a woman, but she is a powerful person.
Sure.
And that he has found himself in a situation where he has to bend at the mercy of a female.
Sure.
And he's not willing to do that because, not because she's a woman, but because she represents this thing that he's been trying to beat all along. The reason he gets sent from the work farm is because he doesn't want to work. So he thinks, oh, this will be a cakewalk.
Yeah.
I could just get sent over here. This will be fine.
So later, when they're talking about sending him back, and she's the sort of the lone voice of dissent that says, oh, well, I think we can help him.
Yeah.
I mean, you think
exactly.
That's all just power play?
I think
she just wants to keep him there and defeat him more.
Yeah, I think that's because if he gets sent away, he wins.
He wins, yeah.
If he gets out of her control, if she loses the control, he has beaten her establishment.
Right.
He has escaped. He's got, even if he goes back to the work farm, he had basically a week off of work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She needs to make sure that he is under her thumb before any good comes to him.
Yeah.
He needs to beg her for things to be okay.
Yeah, and one of the things that's always been interesting about Cuckoo's Nest for me is the role of women throughout the whole movie. I mean, you mentioned he has kind of those friends that come in, the prostitutes or whatever, and they're the sole position of, women as fun items.
Exactly.
But everything else is maybe just as flat of a character, but in the complete opposite direction.
Yeah.
The other characters are all, instead of just being tokens for fun, they are just oppressive. And think about not only the nurse, but also the overbearing mother figure.
Yeah.
I mean, the women throughout this film, you don't see one of them unless they're in control and telling somebody to swallow a pill or get back to their room.
I mean, look at Harding's wife.
Yeah.
This is kind of an interesting look at the oppression of women on men.
Sure.
That idea.
Oppression, right.
Is
well, because we have when we talk women in prisons film, they're often exploitative. Yeah. They're not all male,
right?
casts.
Yeah. And then this film, we get this. Harding, I think, is a really interesting look at the idea of men feeling oppressed by women and pushing back because one, he's committed himself.
Right. This is better than the oppression he's getting at home.
But the thing is he's admitting that she's probably not doing anything wrong.
Sure.
And he suspects her, and that makes him feel crazy. And he's basically oppressing himself because of his feelings for her.
Yep.
And a lot of the film, I think, comments on, it's this power play, and it's this, insanity that feels like different people are just holding you down.
Sure.
And how that makes you feel crazy.
Yeah.
And Max says none of these people are too crazy to be out on their own doing stuff. And that's probably true. I mean, they're all just as fucked up as everybody out there, he says. And these are basically the people sane enough to know that they're not sane.
Yeah.
And
but that's kind of it's a twist moment, though.
Right.
I mean, it's a really surprise. You find out that, most of these people are here
voluntarily.
of their own choice. And that's it's a huge eye opener for McMurphy to go, oh, well, hold on. I didn't understand how this works at all.
Well, that's the moment where he realizes that he has a lot more to lose.
Yeah.
Because they've all been, cheering him on, telling him, yeah, fuck that nurse over. It'll be hilarious. Sure. And then he finds out none of them, they can all leave.
Sure.
And that they have been watching him dig himself into a hole.
Yeah.
And
the mere notion that you're finding out all of the crazies are free men is almost the craziest thing yet.
Sure.
That almost, you don't go, oh, so they're a lot more sane than I thought. You go, wow, these whack jobs have committed themselves.
Yeah.
They must be really fucking batty. But it challenges your assumptions, and I love that. I love that it goes halfway through this movie, you're not even fucking expecting that, and you go, oh, wow, that just mixes up everything.
Well, and then you get the last character, arguably the sanest one, and I mean in the film. I don't mean in the ward.
Right.
Because the nurse is a fucking crazy person.
Sure.
All these people, I think the doctor specifically is crazy because of how pragmatic he is.
Yeah.
Everything, he consults other physicians. He really doesn't have his own opinion if it doesn't come out of a fucking textbook.
But a movie like this just really, it cries out to go evaluate the sanity of every person.
Exactly. Well, that's the whole idea.
That's what it
of
wants
it.
to do. Sure.
And that's why I think Chief, when you finally find out he can speak and that his whole backstory is involved with his father and his weakness and his alcoholism.
Sure.
It's weird because these other people have committed themselves, and even that makes them seem crazier than somebody who goes, I'm afraid of what might happen to me out in the real world. I'm going to get myself committed.
Right.
Because even I know that I may not be strong enough to keep myself here.
Sure.
If I have the option to leave.
Well, and I know it's not double sleepy nap time, but I'm pretty sure, isn't he the narrator in the book?
Yeah. The book is all in first person.
Yeah, he turns out to sort of be the main character.
Yeah.
It's one of those women in prison films we did last year on the show. Maybe that was taking a moment from here and kind of going, oh, our protagonist isn't even necessarily who we thought they were.
Right.
I want to talk about the idea of sanity a little bit, because I think another big theme that the movie is considering is the role of recovery, or the things that play into recovery and how valid one or another might be. The biggest thing that happens in the character's life is maybe not even the electroshock. I guess it's the lobotomy, but I think of the electroshock and the lobotomy as these are tools that were used to, in insane asylums to make people better. And this movie clearly treats them like, not only to say they were invalid, but they are tools for punishment. Yeah. Right? These aren't really helping anybody.
I think initially, and you look back, way back, you look to, ancient Egypt and its bloodletting practice.
Sure.
Where, when you get a fucking bad headache, doesn't that just make so much sense? I'm going to put a hole right here and let some of this pressure out.
Sure.
And I think that somebody somewhere along the line went, your brain is broken. If we can do a hard reset.
Right. Right.
Maybe it'll work again.
Thank you for appealing to the technician in me. That's good.
So,
Michael, this is before they had homeopathy. They didn't know they could just take water and fix all their problems.
Well, and that's the thing. I think somebody somewhere made the completely selfless and innocent postulation that electricity may restart the brain.
Sure.
And that may be all that's necessary.
Sure.
And I think that didn't work, but obviously hurt them.
Sure. Sure. So you think at some point, the person who set up that idea, they had good intentions.
Yeah.
They weren't trying to create a torture tool.
Right.
That just
and then
happened
trying
to
to sneak it into.
Right. Just as where homeopathy has been found to hydrate you and do literally nothing more than that.
Right.
Electroshock was found to have an effect on people. Not the one that was intended, but, we could use it to keep people in line.
Pacify them.
So, I think that's a lot more of that power play between McMurphy and Nurse Ratched. That's what those tools are being used for. But the movie isn't just calling those things into question, or I guess, outright justifiably dismissing them. It's also the entire idea of behaviorism and, keeping all of the loonies in one place. We've questioned this with alcohol abuse before. Does being around a bunch of other recovering alcoholics who might relapse actually help at all? And I think that's one of the things the movie questions as far as recovery from insanity. not just asking, well, aren't all of these people a little bit insane, or who's really sane or insane, and by what definitions, but then also saying their behavior doesn't appear to really change very much when they're all grouped together.
Sure.
In fact, some of them seem to enable the others.
Right. Well, and it's another thing to look at it as a distinction of the real crazy people and then the not crazy people that can try to talk to each other.
Sure.
I mean, when you get the thing about raising hands, half the room is in the circle.
Sure.
The other half is too crazy to have a conversation. Right. You've got the whole thing where Tabor is constantly pissing people off. He's probably got some sociopathic tendencies.
Yeah, right.
And I mean,
he's got that girl interrupted kind of ego.
Sure. And the problem that you have when you put a bunch of crazy people in a circle is they think they're the sane one.
Right.
And everybody else is nuts. Yeah. And they think it's hilarious.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Mac, when he first sits down in the circle, sits back, folds his arms, and giggles that nobody wants to talk.
Right.
He thinks it's funny when, they want to talk about sex, or they want to talk about whether or not Harding is gay because he uses the word peculiar.
Sure, right. It's the thing that makes me think, and this probably isn't true, but every time I watch this movie and they go on the fishing trip, to me, when I think back to the movie, I always go, well, the fishing trip was trying to say that, if they just got outside and had fun, that was the one moment where they're not so bad, and they're, this is the one time they really had fun.
Well, and I think it's also a way to go, okay, pretend you didn't meet these people in a mental institution.
Sure. Could they pass
as
doctors?
Do they look crazy?
Yeah, right. Could you just add doctor to all of their name? But when I actually sit down and watch the movie and I'm taking notes, I don't know if they're necessarily having more fun on the fishing trip than the fishing trip could just as well be the basketball court. I think they might be having as much fun in the mental institution.
Yeah.
Or that might be just as rehabilitative as being outside.
Right.
So, I mean, I really, I want to call that the movie criticizing keeping them all together in one place, but I don't think it necessarily suggests that the fishing trip is better for their mental health.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think it's definitely just a way to see all these characters having a zany time,
right?
Being goofy and if you look at it like an old comedy,
sure,
and you see, the boat's going in circles, oh my god, nobody knows how to fish. They just seem like goofy characters, but they don't seem like fucking nut jobs that are committed to an institution.
Sure.
And I think it's just a way to display that disconnect that Max says, that everybody is crazy.
Sure.
I mean, they're no crazier than anybody else, but when you put somebody in an institution, you're going to see the crazy.
Yeah.
The crazy is going to be the obvious part. Billy stutters.
Yeah.
If you met Billy on the street,
sure,
you would say, he was a nice guy, stutters, but that's just he's got a stuttering issue. When he's in a mental institution, you think he's crazy because he's stuttering.
Right.
That's a way to illustrate your insanity.
Sure, but at the same time, to judge him by his actions, he ends up fucking killing himself.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
So there is,
sure.
I mean, for as much as we're making it sound like, mental problems aren't even a real thing.
Right.
There's no such, but when somebody is so mentally off that they would consider killing themselves,
right,
that is a problem. And
sure,
it's that one moment at the end where you're just about going, wow, aren't human beings all just fun, quirky people? Let's just let them all go outside. And then something very fucking real happens.
And that's when you go, people need to be
I have
up.
no idea what to do about mental problems.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a website, doublefeatureshow.com. You won't be able to answer any questions about mental problems using the site, but you can find other movies Jack Nicholson was in. So that's good.
Absolutely.
And you can email us, doublefeatureshow@gmail.com, if you can think of any movies that came out before Dementia 13 that had that kind of noir narration. I guess just any narration by female protagonists, female characters in the film. This was a good heady week of double feature. What are we doing next time?
Next time we're gonna do something violent and something sexual.
Good.
There's gonna be cars. Basically, it's gonna be another episode of double feature.
Great, can't wait.
We're gonna do Bellflower and Crash, but not the Oscar Crash, not
the
Don
bullshit
Cheadle
crash. You can just say the bullshit crash. We'll dismiss it on this show, and then we won't have to talk about it.
That sounds fair.
The next show.
All
movies are good. We're doing the Cronenberg Crash.
All right, watch more fucking film.
Bye.
Well, boys, looks like you started the fun without me.
Oh, sick. Every last one of you.
We're going to need a bigger gun.
What's the matter? You scared of things that go boom, boom?
Give me one goddamn reason why I shouldn't blow your goddamn brains all over that goddamn wall.
My name is Eric, and I'm here today with medical professional mental doctor Michael Kester.
Wow, that's...
who will be talking to me about two movies.
Two movies, yeah. We're going to do two films today about medical professional mental doctor is... Okay, fuck that. We're doing Dementia 13.
Thank you, good.
And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, great. Crazy people. You know my favorite thing in the world.
Two great films that go great together.
Great fucking crazy people. We're going to spoil these movies. I think we're also going to spoil Psycho.
Okay.
So, well, here's my rationale on that, right? I don't actually want to spoil the movies that we're not talking about because I want to give people a fair chance to see. Yeah, if you haven't fucking seen Psycho, I mean, there's a statute of limitations on
I don't know.
things.
I always get pissed off. More blood and more killing.
Is that the case?
Yes, Psycho
That's
came
what I
out and
figured
Corman
happened.
absolutely just said, rip off Psycho
Sure.
with more blood and more killing.
Well, success.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of know that by looking at it, right? It's not really a
Right.
secret.
Right.
It's clearly, I mean, even in the surprises it has in the first act, or I guess middle of the movie kind of thing, it pulls.
So that's where little Francis Coppola got his start directing. He'd been doing editing for New World for a while.
Yeah.
And then apparently his edit of this film was not good enough because Corman then basically looked at it and said, "What is this, art? Let's get that Jack Hill character in here."
Oh, sure. Yeah, this is the thing that has the Jack Hill parts.
Yeah.
I forget that Jack Hill is involved, but I always remember the scenes he did because they're the ones with Simon, the lovable Irish poacher character,
right.
who just shows up for no fucking reason. And it's just totally different than the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
It's another one of the things like the Psycho ripoff element where you just watch it and point to it and go, I see what's happening here.
Every time with a Corman film, especially the early black and white ones, when you see something like the lovable Irish poacher, you look at it and instead of seeing, this is an aspect of the film I like, you see it and you see like a few more dollar signs appear next to the name of the film.
Sure.
And that's the goal.
We need to do some kind of feature where we figure out how much money was made in a film and then we estimate in
Pop-up
real
video
time.
style.
Yeah, we could do a commentary / infographic.
That sounds like
that
a
shows up on the
brilliant
screen and
idea.
just add up the money maybe we can double feature it with the Tyler Perry film. I love Dementia 13 for being Coppola's White Cat movie. This is the movie that just white cats him as that Pet the White Cat idea from what movie is that from? We always reference
Enter
that.
the Dragon.
Sure.
Way back when we did
You
Enter
think
the Dragon.
Enter the Dragon's scary, there's a villain in it, he pets a white cat.
Yeah.
It's not that bad.
No.
It's really not that hard. Francis Ford Coppola, I mean, we should talk about who he is today.
Oh, yeah.
Because I feel like he's a double feature director we should love, but he doesn't look like that because he's put on a disguise. And so people don't know. I mean, he's the guy who made Godfather.
He made The Godfather. He did Apocalypse
Now, yeah.
I mean, this is... He's,
what else do you need to say? Godfather and Apocalypse Now. That does not sound like a double feature director.
Well, it's partially because both of those films exceed 3 hours.
Sure.
Which
we're definitely not going to spoil Sucker Punch today, which is a movie that even if I urged people to go see first, no one would see it. Go see that. You should actually see Sucker Punch. We did a show on it. Today's show is on Dementia 13 and another flick we'll talk about later.
So Dementia 13 is from way back when in the beginnings of New World Pictures.
Yeah.
Where a bunch of young filmmakers were just getting their start out in the real world. Roger Corman, who we've discussed ad nauseum for no reason. Roger Corman is one of the most unnecessary people to discuss if you've discussed him more than once.
Sure.
Because he's a one-trick pony. It's just a fabulous trick.
Well said. This movie does not waste any fucking time, though. It is exploitation from the first goddamn frame. That is your trick, right? It's, what does he say in the boat? He says something like, if I die, you get nothing. And then he falls over and dies.
Oh my god, a heart attack. Not now, not me.
Yeah, right.
So, it's interesting that you bring up Psycho.
Yeah.
Because Corman commissioned Francis Coppola to do one of those Psycho movies, but I want off when people go, well, if you haven't seen it by now.
Okay, but that's only half the argument, right? I understand that, and I agree with you. Okay. If someone just came on our show today and spoiled Citizen Kane, I'd be mad. But if you've seen Dementia 13 and you haven't seen Psycho, you clearly, I mean, you've shown your priorities here.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, it's our fucking show. I want to talk about Psycho.
The thing about Psycho is that that's one of those movies that's been, I mean, it's been spoiled. The spoiler has been dead the whole time.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't spoil Psycho just to ruin somebody's good time. I just mean, there's a cool thing that happens in Psycho that, by the way, I did not know about when I saw it for the first fucking time. And I'm going to ruin it on today's show.
Well, and after this long diatribe about the spoilers in Psycho, if you wanted to chapter over that conversation we just had, you could have done that by using your chapters menu to go straight to Dementia 13 or right over that to Cuckoo's Nest or even all the way to the end of the show where we discuss who's fucking who next week.
Yeah, that's definitely happening. The intro of our show is pretty much just to get order in line because we never understand order of the movies, order of the spoilers.
Order of the pizza.